Peace, it's Brother Polite, and we're gonna do some biology today. So first thing we're gonna do is draw this cell. We're gonna look at the nucleus, and inside this nucleus, we have the nucleolus. All right, and inside the nucleolus, we have ribosomes. These ribosomes exist all in the cytoplasm of the cell, and they also exist right here on the endoplasmic reticulum, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and then you have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Then right here you have the Golgi apparatus, also known as the Golgi body. This is very important. So inside of the nucleus, you have your DNA. Now the DNA's job is to give its edict or give its mandate about what needs to be created. That's what's important. So we got to understand the base pairs real quickly. You have adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. They'll always be seen in these combinations. The DNA has to make a copy of itself. So keep in mind, everything that's going on right over here is really going on inside the nucleus of the atom. So what we're going to have here is the DNA is going to make a copy of itself right here. And when this DNA makes a copy of itself, you have 5' N, 3' N, 3' N, 5' N, okay? We'll talk about that later. And you still have these bases, but the difference is you have an enzyme called RNA polymerase. And what this RNA polymerase is making what's called a transcription, because we're getting ready to export some data out of the nucleus. So this polymerase is an enzyme that's literally texting, okay, and writing code so we can get what's called a single strand of RNA. Now, what makes RNA different is the fact that with these base pairs of the DNA, it's deoxyribonucleic acid, right? So deoxyribonucleic acid is missing oxygen. But with the RNA, we actually have the oxygen. Okay, so that's a big difference. Then aside from having adenine, instead of thymine as a pair, you're gonna have U as in uracil. So it's gonna be AUGC as opposed to ATGC. So now we have the RNA pretty much figured out. We're gonna zip it up with the 5' and the 3', and so this is almost ready to go. Now we gotta go to the ribosomes. What is the goal of the ribosomes? Well, the ribosome's role is to make sure that it undergoes or executes protein synthesis, to turn these amino acids into peptides, like small circles, one on top of each other, until that becomes an actual protein to fulfill the functionality that it was destined to fulfill by way of the decree or the edict of the DNA. The next thing that this ribosomes have to look at the actual RNA and say, yo, which combinations of amino acids need to get together? Because we need to translate nucleotides. These are nucleotides, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. We have to translate nucleotide conversation into polypeptide conversation. So this first part is called transcription. But now what the ribosomes have to do is be part of the tRNA. Now you have ribosomal RNA. Now the tRNA, now what we're talking about is translating or taking code for nucleotides and converting it into polypeptides. That's what we're doing right now. And so when this gets done, this is all in the Golgi apparatus, whose job is to really mail data over after it's been put together in proper context. So when this transcription takes place, the translation is going on up in here in the Golgi apparatus, and when it's ready, the amino acids into peptides, into polypeptides, which are now functional proteins, are now emailed right over here to the Golgi apparatus from the endoplasmic reticulum. And what's going to happen inside here is that the proteins are going to be folded to be more purposeful, more efficient, more effective, and it accommodates as far as less space being taken up. So it can fulfill its purpose to do like what? Maybe create hemoglobin, which is a special protein responsible for the uptake of oxygen from one part of the body to the rest of the body. That's what hemoglobin does, and we're going to get into that conversation. So what kind of virus is the coronavirus? That's the number one question. When there's a virus in town, first thing we should ask is, what kind of virus is it? Is it a DNA virus or is it an RNA virus? Well, it's an RNA virus, and typically we'll find respiratory diseases are caused by way of RNA viruses. So RNA viruses pick up the conversation from here, take over the endoplasmic reticulum, and take over the Golgi apparatus or the Golgi body, and creates a new decree or a new edict for what the proteins really need to do. So it's creating new instructions. So this is what I need you to see. What are the new instructions that's being created? Well, the new instructions that's being created, you got goblet cells and you got ciliated cells. Goblet cells are responsible for creating mucin, right? And mucin is there, or the mucus that's being produced is there so we can protect ourselves from harmful fungi or harmful bacteria, so we don't get infections. That's what your lungs got up in there. And then you got cilia, which protects us from pathogens, okay? So that's what these things are here. But if the virus comes in, if it's an RNA virus, if it's a respiratory disease, then the RNA virus has some kind of compatibility with the cells to trick the cells into thinking, oh, something's compatible with me, it must belong to me. Let me follow the instructions. Unbeknown to the cell, that the virus figured out how to establish compatibility with a protein receptor called ACE2. So now when this virus goes inside of your lungs, this is your lungs, this is your bronchi going over here, and then you have these things called alveolus. So the alveolus, right, is likened to that of trees. So these alveoli, likened to that of trees, creates a situation right here. Because with the trees, you have leaves that get in contact with the sun, and what that does is produce photosynthesis. So with your lungs, you have the bronchi and all that, but the alveoli are responsible for deploying oxygen to the deoxygenated blood, so that blood can be oxygenated and drop off that oxygen to the rest of the body by way of the heart. But if, let's say, the protein that was supposed to be made got compromised, called hemoglobin, which is a special protein responsible for the uptake of oxygen so it can be distributed to the rest of the body. Let's say the RNA went in there and jacked up that conversation. Let's say now the RNA is in there and says, oh, we're gonna go to these goblet cells and cilia cells, and instead of you producing the ample amount of protein, we're gonna make you produce the ample amount of mucus. We're gonna make you overproduce mucus. And we're gonna make sure stop producing them cilia cells, deactivate. So now you're more vulnerable to all sorts of disease. So when the coronavirus is in your lungs, it's actually causing your lungs to inflammate, which means that it's swelling up from fluid because it's disabled from doing what it has to do. And if it happens on one side of your body, it's pneumonia. If it happens on all sides of the body of the lungs, now you're dealing with acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS, right? And that's what's typically happening. So now the reason why we have this conversation is because you have what you call T cells, right? And you have TCR, right? And these are T cell receptors. T cells are neighborhood watch. That's what T cells are. They drive around the body to see if something is wrong. That's what they do, right? And then you have the T cells are looking for cells to send off signals that stipulate something is wrong. And if they see something is wrong, the T cells go and they start banging. But what if there's radiation taking place that throws off the activation of the T cells, like maybe 5G or 4G? Then that's going to be a problem. So now let me take you through history. In 1918, you had the Spanish flu, and in the Spanish flu, we introduced radio waves, and in introducing those radio waves, we see that in China, there wound up being what? There wound up being a respiratory pandemic called Spanish flu. And then in 1968, we see the introduction of radar. Last time was radio, now it's radar waves. In 1968, we see the Hong Kong flu in China, which created a respiratory pandemic called Hong Kong flu that comes from influenza, which was also a respiratory virus. Now we also see today, 2020, that we have the coronavirus, okay? And we see that the coronavirus comes from SARS. And both of those are respiratory diseases. But what do they all have in common? They are all RNA viruses affecting your respiration. See, I want y'all to make these connections because I'm not into conspiracy theory. But one thing that I could tell you, those people that tell you those things, they can't keep a conversation with me. Well, I'm not making these things up. I really wish I could tell you more things, but I'm running out of time right now. So I just want to thank you guys for actually listening, walking with me. Don't eat white flour, white sugar, white salt, because that's going to create mucus. And those are the type of foods that's going to compromise the integrity of your breathing. You don't need the compound interest if you do get infected.